All right, so adapt or die trying for the Martech talk. Not that we need the stakes to be any higher. We've got an amazing panel of folks here to chat with you today. Christina Medina, who is with Poshmark, Kadian Reed, who's with Accenture, and Anya Edstrom from T-Mobile. So welcome, welcome. You're going to hear a lot of wonderful insights today here about how to adapt in this new environment. But very often, like, the foundation on which we're building this adaptation is our marketing technology stack, our technology infrastructure. And that's become more important than ever as we look into this transition of where AI is headed. Oops, I got ahead of myself and said the AI word. All right, we'll come back to that. Let's start with a fun icebreaker. Since we know we're going to be adapting our Martech stack, there might be a few things in the stack that were old friends, maybe not so old friends, that were like, it's time to say goodbye. So I'm curious, if you were going to break up with a Martech tool, what would your breakup text be?
This campaign is over.
Short and to the point.
It's not me, it's you.
I think mine would be, we've tried a lot, but we're growing apart.
I need to spend time working on another tool. All right, so well, with that, what we're going to do is first give each of our wonderful panelists here a chance to dive a little bit deeply into a particular challenge and approach that they've had to adapting their Martech stack, and we'll evolve into a set of questions where we have a little bit of debate and back and forth across the whole panel. So, Christina, I'd love to start with you. Poshmark operates a two-sided marketplace at quite some scale. Everybody talks about personalization. How do you manage it in that sort of an environment?
Yes, that's a great question. We're trying to manage it. How many people are familiar with Poshmark? Can I get a show of hands? Oh my goodness gracious, I'm so sorry about the emails that we're sending currently. So we're trying really hard to make sure that we're matching our customer base with what they're looking for. So if you're a buyer on the site, if you're a seller on the site, how can we change how we're communicating with you based on like what you're trying to do? So if you come on Poshmark and you're searching for Nikes, we probably shouldn't be showing you Louboutins. That means that we have to have all of our data integrated in a really intelligent way. We have an amazing data engineering team that helps us. But at the end of the day, we're really trying to serve our customers and make sure that we can get them what they're looking for. So that means our tech stack has to be good and capable of doing that, that we need to have a good team that understands it, good goals. And at the end of the day, that we're constantly checking to making sure we're actually serving our Poshmark customers. Like, can you do what you want to do when you come to Poshmark?
Yeah. Could you maybe just like walk through like maybe just one example of like where personalization like comes into play?
Yes, there's lots. So most recently, we're looking at the welcome experience. So welcome is like the first handshake you have with any sort of company or any program that you're trying out. And we bifurcated our welcome series, which usually before, I hate to say, was very, very static. It was the same content. It was only bifurcated by gender. We looked at how can we change the content based on the intent and the signals that you have, and how can we add personalization there. So if you come to our site and you shop, we're gonna show you the brand that you're shopping or the item or category that you're shopping. If you haven't taken that next retentive step that we know and we love as marketers for you to do, so like an item, browse an item, make an offer, we're gonna try to do those gentle nudges, and it should feel almost second nature, not like you're being marketed to. Mm-hmm. So we did that with our welcome series with Mo Engage, and it really, I mean, the content was phenomenal. It looked a lot better design. And we saw, I mean, it's huge news, but personalization works if you do it. And engaging content performs really well. So you should really try to test, learn, iterate, and do that as many times as possible. Never set it and forget it. We used to be a set it and forget it company. I'm sure you can tell by some of the emails, but we're working on it and constantly hoping to iterate and change.
Cool. Well, maybe just also one last follow-up question, because again, it's the topic of the decade with AI. Has there been any like early experiments you've done with AI, and
Ooh, AI is such a hot topic. I'm on the other side of AI. I'm a little bit scared of AI. I'm worried they're gonna, take over. But for us, we're looking at ways to reduce manual processes. So what are the QA flows that your marketing operations team is spending time on? Content, like checking the content, maybe adding additional content layers or bifurcation for it. So it's not one person having to create it. So really focusing on those areas right now. And I'm really excited to learn about how other companies are really getting excited with AI.
Yeah. I understand, by the way. I grew up in the age when, movies like The Terminator and Matrix became popular. So, I've seen this movie.
Yes, I know how it
What sort of guardrails do we have here? Yeah, all right. Yes, Kadian, I'm curious that very few companies have the benefit of a complete greenfield when it comes to here's what we would now like to do with Martech. They have a whole bunch of existing systems, existing processes. You get to work with a lot of large enterprises that wrestle with that through the modernization of Martech.
Me included.
Oh, okay, so we're gonna get some back and forth on that. But I guess my question to you would be, what needs to be true for Martech modernization to actually succeed?
Yeah, so I've been working with large enterprises for the last 12 years, and I have the privilege of working with great companies like T-Mobile and great leaders like Anya. And the trap that I see a lot of organizations fall into really starts with the vision that they're setting, aligning objectives to industry buzzwords like one-to-one personalization or fully agentic workflows. And the problem is not with these objectives in and of itself. It's with the fact that it tends to ignore some of the foundational things that need to be in place to enable those things to be a reality. Here's what we know. Customers are frustrated with the volume of information that they get, the volume of offers and promotions that they receive through the buy flow experience, through advertising. So we know that customer demands are on the rise and they expect relevance. Relevance is the solution to meet the evolving customer demands. What's needed to deliver on relevance is really four things. One is having your digital core, which is interconnectivity across the systems that are managing customer data and are managing customer experience. The second is the ability to derive intelligence on top of those systems about your customer to be able to understand what their needs are. The third is processes that allow you to operate with agility to be able to deliver customer experiences that are fit for purpose for that experience. So not a one-size-fits-all approach where everyone in the organization is involved in launching every single campaign, because that's not scalable. And then the fourth is the focus on your Martech and Martech stack and what tools you actually need to be able to deliver those customer experience. The problem is that we typically see a disproportionate focus only on the Martech and not acknowledging those other foundational items. I have a question actually to the audience. How many of you know how much it costs in OpEx to deliver a campaign within your organization? One hand. So this is about what we see. So I've done a process value assessment where we mapped the end-to-end processes within a products company to be able to identify who's involved in launching a campaign, what does it ultimately cost, and what we found was that it costs over $200,000 to launch one single omni-channel campaign. If that organization attempted to retrofit their same workflows to be able to deliver one-to-one marketing, the costs would far outweigh the value that they would get from going on that transition. And so the recommendation for large enterprises is to really do an assessment of what your digital core is, where you have gaps in understanding your customer, to assess your intelligence. Do you have the ability to predict customer behavior, look at your workflows and have a real understanding of where your bottlenecks are? Are you able to deliver experiences in channel quickly and efficiently? And then also the focus on Martech. And then once you've done this, you have the opportunity to then look at where does it make sense to personalize, recognizing that not all personalized experiences are created equal. They don't all provide the same amount of value, and they shouldn't all require the same amount of effort. And so what you might come out of that is personalizing specific parts of the experience, like the PLP, or focusing on customer service and making sure that when customers are engaging directly by calling in, that you're providing them with the best possible experience that's unique to their customer profile. And then, of course, these things are foundational to truly modernizing marketing, taking advantage of some of the capabilities that we know are going to revolutionize the way that we all live our lives and the way that we do marketing with capabilities like AI and machine learning.
One thing I'm curious about, so it's not only that the tech stack is not greenfield, and brownfield sounds too negative, but like once you even have the vision of like, okay, here's where we need to get to with this next generation, for most of these organizations, right? It's not like, okay, well, we'll set everything else aside and we're just gonna go now build that. It's like, how do you balance keeping all the, it's the metaphor that, changing the plane engine while it's in flight. How do you keep business as usual working while also making meaningful progress on the evolution of those capabilities?
Yeah, the recommendation is to create capacity within the organization, either by having people that are directly focused on driving the transformation efforts and the evolution of the tech stack, while still having teams that are focused on maintaining the day-to-day, but having collaboration and synergies across these teams. Because when you have your core teams that are responsible for maintaining your business, BAU, also working on transforming your tech stack, and people's focus and capacity is split across too much areas, then you're not able to do either of those objectives effectively. And so the recommendation would be have a tiger team that's focused on the transformation, but make sure that you have the channels of collaboration between your BAU SMEs that are running the day-to-day and the team that's focused on evolving your tech stack.
Good, good, good. Well, definitely this is one of the running themes here is, the tech is not enough. It's the organization and the organizational readiness to make these things succeed. I guess, Anya, you've lived that challenge at T-Mobile, in particular, wrestling data and content and governance. What's been most critical from your perspective in making Martech actually work?
Couple things. First, I want to double down on something that Kadian said, and it's really understanding the operational metrics and measurement. So understanding what it actually costs, the true transformation for us when it came to leaders paying real attention was showing them the numbers, showing them how many man hours it takes to get something done, showing them the cost that we evaluated to really understand kind of that full spectrum of what it takes to get something out the door with a very matrix and siloed organization that T-Mobile is. And then the other is data. We had disparate data lakes, we had data in different places, and really coming with a unified CDP that helps us understand and get that full spectrum end-to-end, that whole customer viewpoint was an integral part of actually making kind of our Martech journey progress in the way that it needs to. And I would say the third part is really creating a taxonomy. This took us a year in the making to come up with it, collaborate across the different teams that needed to adapt it, to really think through how do we then take that taxonomy, make sure that people are using it in their day-to-day campaign management so that we could actually have measurable results in the end. So I think for us, it's kind of that combination, that sweet spot of really helping our leaders understand the value of what the work takes to get done, because it's often overlooked from a performance perspective. We have lots of campaign performance and retrospectives and how did something actually do in market, but we don't really take the time to show how much cost is involved in getting the work done. And so that's where I feel like was a real turning point in acceleration of Martech.
Yeah, quantifying those costs and incredible leverage. I also just love the emphasis here on making sure you've got a universal taxonomy on this stuff. For so long, so many companies have been oh, our big problem is we can't get our data integrated, And luckily there's starting to have been a lot of advancements where okay, now we can get all the data in one place and oh my God, this data is a total mess. Definitely wise words, on the data structure side. I'm curious on the governance side, because you have so many teams, so many moving parts, okay, it's almost like that data problem, but now pushed to the customer experience. I'd imagine a lot of contention for people wanting to do multiple things to the same audience.
Absolutely.
How do you govern that?
Yeah, we've created a lot of governance models and forums, anything from how many different tools and systems we're bringing in order to create those customer experiences, but also just even in ways that we work. We've started to collaborate to break down silos and create governance models from universal intake to really what customers see and when, and how do we start to unify that across channels I in particular am responsible for most of our inbound channels, so really thinking through governance and models across the, like, let's say, website homepage or the app homepage, which is a big entry point for all of our base customers now. And with that, I've got some of my colleagues that sit in my outbound teams and some of my colleagues that sit across our paid media. And to really bring all of that together was an important part of thinking through and putting the customer at the center of the experiences to make sure that we were telling them the right thing at the right time, understanding when to use machine learning models, when to use AI, but when to also really share what we think is the most important thing to them at the time, and that we want them, the action we need them to take, or the action that they want to take in meeting them where they are, similar to what Christina was saying earlier.
Cool. All right. Well, we've set the stage here to give folks a little bit of insight into each of the work that you do. Would love to tackle some of these topics that you can get multiple perspectives on. And maybe let's begin with the tipping point. What was the signal? What was the initiation, the catalyst for deciding, like, we have to adapt or die trying? Boy, that just sounds so like
Ominous.
heavy. But yeah, what was the trigger to say, like, no, we've got to do something different?
I think for us, it was a combination of T-Mobile has really come a long way in the last 5 years, and we have crested that challenger to champion. Super excited to be number one in our field. And for us, it was the promise of, okay, how do we sustain this and how do we make the momentum last in a meaningful way? We've been the uncarrier for a long time, and the uncarrier is really about breaking customer boundaries and really meeting their pain points and where they're at. So for us, the next phase was, how do we create those super personalized experiences so that we really feel like we deepen that customer connection in the relationship? We made big bets in our app. We took our app ecosystem from about 20 different to one. We have T-Life now, and this is a convergence of every messaging we can possibly send, whether it's about their home internet or it's about their postpaid or prepaid business with us, if they're a T-Mobile for Business customer. So it all converges in one place, whether we're talking to them about our new satellite offering. So to that end, we had to come up with, how do we do this in a way that is meaningful to them to kind of meet their customer need and not feel like we've just got a giant scroll of advertising. And so it's been that journey of, how do we map the data to the right propensity models of what we think they want to do because of signals that they've shown us. And we really have created this momentum with MoEngage because it's given us a user interface that allows us to look at more kind of omni-channel approach. We use them right now for the majority of our channels. We have app and push. We have our website as well as email, kind of all within the stack. And that gives us a more fluid approach to how we communicate with customers, so that whether it's the right time, the right channel, the right message, we're able to kind of tweak it to make sure that we are getting both the right engagement, but also meeting those pain points.
It's like almost a variation of the go slow to go fast. It's almost like converge these things to be able to then truly scale them.
Absolutely.
Christina.
Ooh, I think it was probably when I was asking my favorite engineer for like the 15th time, can you build out this specific trigger for me or build out this campaign? And he was like, get it to the top of the prioritization list. And email campaigns or own channel campaigns are often not as important as product features as they should be. So ensuring that we had the correct tooling to not only free up our engineering teams to do stuff that they cared more about, and also make sure that we could serve our customer base. So it's a really jarring experience when you sign up and then get a bunch of emails that aren't relevant for you. Like, we experience this as consumers, but I think really going back to our core value proposition of how can we help our users be successful, our customers, how can we connect them with what they're looking for? Because when you find something secondhand, that's amazing. Like that moment of getting something is delightful. It's amazing. So how can we key in on that instead of, we're just trying to achieve this marketing goal or do this thing? And that ultimately was, how can we actually deliver this and not on a homegrown system? So previous to that was homegrown. Poshmark had built out all of our tools. We had our own CRM system on our back end. And eventually we reached that tipping point of, we can't scale and we can't provide the level of a customer experience that we want to. And then we start looking at tooling, like which tools can actually provide this experience. And with Mo Engage, we've been able to leverage a lot of their flow capabilities, their audience segmentation. We used to have to, it took us days to figure out audience sizes, like a full batch job had to run. We could figure that out in seconds now. So it's small changes like that where we see operational improvements, and then can also at the end of the day provide the data, because at the end of the day I'm responsible for all of these metrics of, yes, changing these campaigns, having it be in a flow, and have this stuff send out based on triggers instead of just random days that we've picked actually does improve the engagement we're seeing with our customers. And it's a better customer experience. And people are now saying like, oh, I love that email that you sent, which previously it was, why are you sending me so many emails? And I think as marketers, we're often told to do more, send more, create more. And coming back to I think we've sent the cap of what we can do. Now we need to figure out how to be more tactile with our approaches, strategic, and actually do less to somehow get more, which in order to do that, it's an impossible task. You need amazing tools, and you need for the tools to work.
Yeah, that refrain of like, do more with less, it's a good time to retire that. And like, I like the way you're thinking of it. It's like, how do we do better?
Yeah, do better.
Adrian, is there like certain meta patterns you just see of like, what triggers people to like, we've got to make a change?
Yeah, absolutely. I think within Accenture, it's the desire to be on the cutting edge, to have experienced the transformation so that we can be able to advise our customers. In terms of what I see in the market, one of the main catalysts in recent times has been the inability to be able to take advantage of some of the capabilities like AI that are being adopted and are evolving very rapidly. Our research shows that around 75% of companies that we work with have made some sort of investment in AI. And a large number of those companies have seen extraordinary results from the investments that they've made. One example is something that we recently done with T-Mobile, which is enabling customers to use the T-Life app to do a voice upgrade where they're speaking with an AI chatbot. And that's been an extraordinary way to be able to deliver on what customers need in the app experience, but also do it using AI in sort of a low cost to serve way. There are customers that are not seeing the value out of their AI investments, and this is largely because they don't have the right foundation in place, and they're layering AI on top of siloed or fragmented ecosystems, and it's resulting in the outputs not being valuable with their customers. And what we've seen is that there is actually a risk with using AI if you don't have the right foundation in place. And we talk about this concept of a cognitive brain, which is having a foundation that is an insights about your customer that comprise of the first party data that you have, the third party data that you have, but also very importantly, equally importantly, is your brand identity and making sure that AI understands how you engage with your customers as a brand. And at this stage, we still recommend human in the loop for most AI functions. So there's still someone engaged in checking to ensure that the outputs are aligned to expectations. But ultimately, with these things in place, you have a better opportunity to be poised to take advantage of the capabilities as they continue to evolve.
All right. Boy, I knew this was going to be a panel where we're like, could we have 3 or 4 hours and we'll like really dig into all this? We've got about 6.5 minutes left. There's 2 questions I really do want to pry at, so I'm hoping you can give me sort of the pithy version of that. But the first is I want to go back to this thing. It's not just the tech. So like, how do you get the organization more broadly on board with this change? How do you drive alignment and buy-in? Anya?
Now, our decision was really kind of twofold, but it started with the CEO wanted it. So
good place to start.
So there were no options, and we had to make it work. But it was really about how do we then bring the organization from the ground up along. And with that, it was making it real for them, and how that change and what they could do differently mattered to how they worked. Being a very collaborative company that T-Mobile is, working smarter and not harder was an easier sell than I care to admit. But I do think that breaking down those silos, having conversations about the ways that we needed to bring campaigns to life and changing the way we work, and even documentation. mapping the end-to-end journey of how a bill becomes a law, how a campaign comes to life from ideation through to bringing it to a customer's inbox or on the app or the web was a really important distinction for us, because we had a lot of folks that just had it all in their head, and getting it on paper, talking about together where the opportunities were to bring synergy, whether it was things like governance models and intake process, to just how the tool could be a more intuitive UI, and have an interface that you can build entire journeys and flows in one place, was pretty magical. So I think for us, it was more around, we knew we had to go do it, but it was more about how we went about it and bringing people along the way to make it really truly feel real to them, that it would help their day-to-day, was probably the biggest catalyst to make that go forward faster.
Makes sense.
I can't say that my CEO wanted it.
That's a great card. If you have it, play it. Yes.
Yeah, I did not have that card. It was an internal sell. I think it's really important to have partners that believe in what you're trying to accomplish, and people that have done it before and can speak to it. So Aziz is in the audience. He was an amazing partner who was assisting me throughout the process of trying to figure out, okay, how do we make this transition? How do we do this? What can we put in place? So it's not just, putting up a new tech stack and then it not working, which is the worst possible situation you could be in. And making sure that you're speaking to everyone in the organization with the metrics that they care about. So from our marketing ops team, it was, hey, you can actually now do this 10 times easier. And for engineering, it was, hey, you don't have to help marketing ops do this anymore.
Imagine.
Yeah, and then for leadership and other cross-functional teams, it was, here's how much we can support you, and here is the impact that these programs can now drive. And hey, guess what? Lifecycle can actually help you achieve some of these goals. And then at the end of the day, of course, keeping the customer in mind and having that really laser focus on how can we make this experience better, instead of it being here's everything we want to tell you through, I like to tell my team, it's like we're yelling at them through one of those megaphones. Instead thinking, how can we just make it feel like we're laying a lily pad in front of you and you just want to step on that lily pad and it feels really relaxing and lovely and nice. But in order to do that, where you create that experience, you need to have buy-in and also make sure that you're really speaking to every single person in the language that they're going to understand and care about.
That's a lot of change management. Kadian, would it be all right if I redirect you into this next question? Because again, I think this is something you've seen a lot of. The big disruptor around AI. Not so much thinking about predictions of AI, but even what do you see as the sort of readiness investments that companies need to be making? Make sure they just have the fundamental underlying capabilities to support what AI is bringing over these next 2 years.
Yeah, the one thing that I would call out is having a governance framework. So different parts of the organization are going to want different AI capabilities to serve the functions that they need. And that could easily turn into the wild west. And so it's really important to have a centralized governance team that is thinking holistically about what are the opportunities for AI across the organization end to end, and can therefore determine what are the best tools that can assist in delivering on those use cases for those different org functions. And with that being in place, you still have the opportunity to have flexibility of those teams advocating for their needs, but ultimately you ensure that as you serve those use cases, what's being built doesn't become a Frankenstein and create more tech debt. So my number one recommendation would be to have the right governance in place.
All right. Well, we covered so much in the phone call conversations we had prepping for this. We barely scratched the surface on it. So I hope as you're around here during the rest of the day, folks will get a chance to chat with you more. But just to close out this session, one short takeaway. What's one thing each of you want to make sure people carry away in their head of this is really important?
I think for me, it's clean data, garbage in, garbage out. So really being able to meet the customer where they are means that you need to have the right data hygiene.
Know what you're trying to accomplish and set small goals that you can achieve to show the data to everyone else.
I would say change activation. It's often thought of with change management as an unnecessary cost, but I actually think it's a critical enabler to actually realizing the value of a Martech transformation or of tools like AI.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, can I get a round of applause for our wonderful panel here? Thank you so much.